Power doesn't always come from the gun or the street. Sometimes it's built in silence, in hidden ledgers and unbreakable loyalty. In a world ruled by violence, an empire was rising in the shadows, designed with precision, guarded by rules, and bound together by women who refused to be overlooked. Chapter 1. The Rise of Vera. Vera the Vault Volkov wasn't born into power. She forged it out of steel and necessity on the gritty streets of North Philadelphia. Her path was never going to be easy, and from the moment she realized her own strength and her own heart was distinctly different from the boys running the corners, she knew she had to build her own kingdom. She was a woman who loved women, and in her world, that meant trusting women, too. The foundation of the family. Vera's initial rise wasn't about violence, it was about math. She had a cold, calculating mind that understood logistics, profits, and risk assessment better than any veteran bookie or low-level capo. She started small, running a sophisticated numbers operation out of a closed bakery storefront. Her first hire, and the eventual cornerstone of her operation, was Lena the Listener Rodriguez. Lena was sharp, multilingual, and possessed an unnerving ability to read people's intentions, a human lie detector. Vera didn't find Lena through a traditional crew. She found her working 3 desperate minimum wage jobs while trying to support her younger siblings. Vera offered her loyalty, a fair cut, and a path out. Lena, recognizing the genuine lack of predatory intent in Vera's eyes, agreed. "We don't need muscle to win, Lena," Vera had told her over lukewarm coffee in the back room of the bakery. "We need structure. We need to be invisible but indispensable. The men run the streets, but we will own the spreadsheets. We'll be the banks they can't afford to rob." The third key figure was Talia the Switch Jones, a former boxer and expert in secure communications. Talia had the quiet strength and physical presence that commanded respect without a word. More importantly, she specialized in setting up ghost servers and encrypted networks, ensuring that Vera's growing financial empire, money laundering through legitimate fronts like laundromats and small construction firms, could never be traced. Vera's gang wasn't a traditional mafia crew in the sense of leather jackets and constant turf wars. They were the syndicate of the vault, quiet, efficient, and fiercely loyal. And yes, they were all women, many of them queer. Vera actively sought women who had been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed out of traditional power structures. She offered them autonomy and respect, and in return, she received absolute devotion. This wasn't about sex or romance. It was about building a secure, impenetrable economic fortress. Their shared identity created a bond stronger than any blood oath. Rules of the Vault. Vera enforced 3 rules that solidified their reputation and ensured their survival. 1. No civilian harm. They targeted institutions, systems, and rivals, never innocent people. This kept the heat down and ensured their community tolerated their presence. 2. Loyalty is currency. A slight against any member of the Vault was a slight against Vera. Betrayal was the only crime punishable by banishment, instantly and permanently. 3. Clean money is king. All illegal earnings were funneled through layers of legitimate businesses. The goal wasn't just crime, it was creating a diversified financial portfolio that could withstand any legal scrutiny. By the time Vera was 45, the syndicate of the Vault controlled a significant portion of legitimate and grey market finance in 3 major East Coast cities. She was feared, but more often, she was simply known, the untouchable architect who ran things from a comfortable distance, always dressed in impeccably tailored suits. An unconventional encounter. Vera had always maintained a rigid separation between her professional life and her personal one. Her relationships were brief, discreet, and always with women far removed from her operation. She believed that commitment was a vulnerability she couldn't afford. This changed abruptly one Tuesday afternoon. Vera was visiting one of her newest legitimate fronts, an elegant, historic art gallery in Boston that primarily catered to wealthy philanthropists. It was a perfect laundering operation, high value, subjective sales, and a steady stream of plausible clientele. She was reviewing the quarterly budget reports in a quiet back office when she overheard a conversation in the main gallery. A voice, deep, resonant, and possessing the kind of assured wisdom that comes only with decades of experience, was explaining a piece of abstract sculpture to a small group. Vera stepped into the gallery and saw her. Eliza Ellie Hastings was 51, a renowned, semi-retired art history professor who now consulted for high-end collectors and galleries. She wore a simple charcoal dress and thick-rimmed glasses, her silver-streaked hair pulled back elegantly. There was a quiet fire in her eyes, a certainty that Vera had never encountered in a woman who wasn't carrying a hidden weapon or counting cash. Ellie wasn't intimidated by Vera's intense gaze, returning it with a calm, intellectual curiosity. She paused her talk, gave a graceful nod to Vera, the gallery owner she knew only by reputation, and continued her analysis of the sculpture. Vera, the woman who commanded a criminal empire with a flick of her wrist, found herself rooted to the spot, listening to Ellie describe the interplay of light and shadow. It wasn't the art that captivated her. It was the mind behind the words, the sheer, unapologetic confidence. This woman dealt in beauty and knowledge, a world Vera's operations were only designed to mimic. Later that day, Ellie approached Vera in the office with a business proposal regarding a new exhibition. Vera listened, not hearing the business terms, but hearing the rhythm of Ellie's voice. She found herself agreeing to terms that were perhaps overly favorable to the gallery simply to keep Ellie talking. "You have a very precise way of looking at things, Ms. Volkov," Ellie noted, packing up her briefcase. "It's the eye of a chess player, not a curator." Vera smiled, a genuine, slow unfolding that rarely broke through her professional armor. "And you, Professor Hastings, see the beauty in the structure. I suspect your true masterpiece isn't on a wall, but in your own design." It was a perfect, consensual challenge. Vera had found her match, not in strength or intimidation, but in intellectual depth and quiet, unyielding self-possession. The foundation of the vault had been built on mathematics. Vera's new world was about to be built on history, art, and the most dangerous variable of all, genuine, unexpected love. Chapter 2: The Geometry of Love and the Guarded Daughter. The first dinner date was the most unnerving strategic negotiation Vera had faced in years. She wasn't negotiating a hostile takeover or warding off federal scrutiny. She was navigating the subtle currents of mutual attraction with a woman who operated entirely outside her rules. They met at a quiet, unpretentious Italian restaurant, Ellie's Choice. Vera arrived in a black silk suit, her usual armor, but she felt exposed. Ellie, in a soft blue sweater and tailored slacks, talked about the collapse of the Soviet Union's art market, the history of patronage, and the subtle biases in canonical literature. Vera talked about systems, how she designed her businesses to be unassailable, how every choice was a trade-off between risk and reward. She never lied, but she offered truths that were so abstract they became impenetrable. "You describe your work like an architect describing a fortress," Ellie observed, swirling her wine. "But what are you guarding, Vera? The money, or yourself?" Vera, taken aback by the directness that bypassed all her carefully constructed defenses, simply paused and met Ellie's gaze. "Both," she admitted finally. "Anything you build worth having requires defense." The chemistry wasn't fireworks, it was the slow, steady heat of a furnace. It was intellectual first, based on mutual respect for each other's formidable minds, and only later, when Vera found herself walking Ellie to her brownstone apartment in Beacon Hill, did it become physical. The first kiss was hesitant, a gentle probe of two powerful women testing the boundaries of their vulnerability. It felt softer, slower, and more significant than any impulsive affair Vera had known. Over the next 3 months, their relationship became a constant, anchoring presence in Vera's chaotic life. Their time was spent reading in sunlit rooms, walking through public gardens, or just sitting in silence, content in each other's company. Ellie was the only person who saw Vera fully relax, the sharp edges of the vault softening into the warmth of Vera. The family variable. Vera knew that Ellie had a daughter, but she hadn't met her. Ellie was protective of Clara, 23, who was navigating her post-college life as an aspiring photojournalist. Clara also happened to be openly lesbian, a fact that gave Vera a quiet sense of comfort, even if it meant she would scrutinize Vera's intentions with an added layer of family loyalty. The introduction happened on a chilly Sunday afternoon. Vera arrived at the brownstone, bearing a complex, antique map of European trade routes, a perfect gift for Ellie. When Ellie opened the door, Clara was standing right behind her, arms crossed, sizing up the woman in the flawless charcoal coat. Clara was a striking young woman with bright blue hair, an array of subtle piercings, and the intense, critical gaze of someone who saw the world through a camera lens. She dressed in functional, slightly artistic street clothes, the antithesis of Vera's polished luxury. "Clara, this is Vera Volkov," Ellie said warmly, placing a hand on Vera's forearm. "Vera, this is my daughter, Clara." "Ms. Volkov," Clara said, her voice flat, offering a reluctant, brief nod. "Clara," Vera replied, her voice low and even. She offered the genuine, non-intimidating smile she usually reserved for Lena and Talia. "It's a pleasure." Dinner was tense. Clara, who clearly adored her mother, was suspicious of Vera's wealth and controlled demeanor. "So, you own, like, a dozen laundromats, right?" Clara asked, spearing a piece of roast chicken. "That's what Mom said." "I own the company that owns the laundromats, yes," Vera corrected gently. "And several construction firms, and this gallery." "Right. And the laundromats are just the tip of the iceberg, I assume," Clara challenged, her eyes narrowed, searching for a lie. Ellie shot Clara a look, but Vera held up a hand, silencing the professor. She respected Clara's protective instinct. "Clara," Vera began, leaning slightly forward, meeting the younger woman's intense stare. "I run systems. Systems that generate and move capital, legally and efficiently. Your mother operates in the world of history and light. I am keenly aware that I am operating in her world now, and I value it. I value her. I have no intention of bringing anything that could tarnish that into this space." It wasn't a threat, it was a promise backed by an immovable presence. Clara didn't flinch, but her tension eased slightly. She was looking for a dangerous predator, and instead found a woman with an unnerving degree of control and respect. "Okay," Clara conceded softly, focusing back on her plate. "But if you hurt her, I have the names of several very sharp investigative journalists who owe me favors." Vera simply nodded. "That's fair. And if you ever need a security detail on a dangerous assignment, you have my number." The shared lesbian identity was a quiet thread between them. While Clara was wary, she recognized the shared experience of loving women, which helped her view Vera less as an outsider and more as an overly structured, incredibly wealthy, but ultimately human, woman pursuing her mother. The challenge to Vera wasn't about violence or power. It was about earning the trust of Ellie's most precious asset, her daughter. In the weeks that followed, Vera began to build a slow, hesitant bridge with Clara. She didn't try to buy her affection. Instead, she helped Clara secure funding for her first major exhibition on social housing structures in the city, a project that appealed directly to Vera's interest in urban infrastructure and systemic inequality. Vera realized that loving Ellie meant loving her whole world, which included the fiery, fiercely intelligent daughter who was now watching her every move. For the first time, Vera found herself defending more than just her financial empire. She was defending her place in a family. And for the architect of the vault, that felt like the riskiest, most rewarding venture yet. Chapter 3: The Blending of Worlds and a New Loyalty. Vera's life, once compartmentalized into rigid boxes, business, security, solitude, began to bleed into Ellie's world of academia and art. This blending required the most delicate navigation Vera had ever undertaken, and it forced her to reveal layers of herself she had kept hidden for decades. Ellie, oblivious to the true nature of the vault, saw only the successful businesswoman who was meticulous, generous, and strangely private. But the women of the syndicate noticed the change immediately. Lena, the listener, was the first to comment. One evening, she met Vera at a neutral, secure location, a late-night dockside coffee shop, to review intelligence regarding a rival crew trying to encroach on their construction permits in New Jersey. Vera, usually focused solely on the numbers and the threat analysis, paused mid-sentence to check her phone. The message was a photo: Ellie, sitting on a park bench, bundled up in a scarf, smiling over a book. The caption read, "Wish you were here. The light is perfect." Lena looked up from the spreadsheet. "She makes you check your phone during a sit-down, boss? That's new." Vera didn't deny it. "Ellie is structural. She brings a geometric precision to my chaos. She demands integrity." Integrity for the woman who runs the cleanest money laundering operation on the East Coast, Lena chuckled, shaking her head. Look, Vera. We don't care who you sleep with. But we care that she's safe, and that she's not a liability. Does she know about the vault? She knows I run a sprawling, diverse, and profitable business portfolio. That's enough, Vera stated. She is deliberately outside the frame, Lena. That is her protection. Lena accepted this. Loyalty to Vera meant trusting her judgment, no matter how reckless the feeling of love seemed. She only offered one piece of advice: just make sure you don't confuse the art gallery's books with the construction firms. We don't want the FBI finding a $50,000 sculpture invoice in a concrete mixer receipt. Vera allowed herself a rare, genuine laugh. Noted. The daughter's test. Clara, however, was not so easily placated. As the months passed and Vera and Ellie's connection deepened, Clara intensified her quiet scrutiny. She knew something felt off about Vera's too-perfect lifestyle and her guarded past. One afternoon, Clara's professional curiosity intersected dangerously with Vera's world. Clara was working on a photo essay about urban blight and development, focusing on a dilapidated industrial district that Vera's construction firm was quietly planning to acquire and redevelop. Clara was photographing an abandoned warehouse when she encountered a small, intense woman wearing a syndicate jacket, Talia the Switch Jones. Talia wasn't there to interact. She was merely surveying the site's security vulnerabilities. Clara, recognizing a powerful presence when she saw one, lifted her camera. Mind if I get a shot of the site supervisor? Talia's eyes, usually cool and neutral, flashed with professional alarm. The site is private. Put the lens down. It's public space until the bulldozers start, Clara argued, snapping a quick, low-angle shot of the syndicate logo barely visible on Talia's vest. Talia stepped closer, her tone shifting from formal to icy. You seem to have a taste for places you shouldn't be, kid. That's how people get misplaced. Clara stood her ground. And you seem like the kind of person who knows exactly where people go. Is this Volkov property? Because I know Vera Volkov. She's dating my mother. The name drop hit Talia like a physical blow. She froze. The rigid rules of the vault dictated immediate containment of threats, but the mention of Ellie and Vera's personal life introduced an untouchable complexity. Talia's voice dropped to a nearly inaudible whisper. You are Ellie's daughter. You are off limits. You forget you saw me. You delete that photo. Now. Clara, recognizing the genuine, terrifying command in Talia's voice, slowly lowered her camera. She realized this woman, unlike Vera, was pure execution. She quickly navigated to the photo and deleted it. Consider it deleted, Clara said, her heart hammering. And I saw nothing. Talia simply nodded, her expression unchanged, then melted back into the shadows of the warehouse. The honest reckoning. Clara didn't tell her mother about the encounter. She went straight to Vera, finding her at her downtown loft, a space that was beautiful but designed with the security of a bunker. The laundromats, Clara started, without preamble. The construction firms. The art gallery. They're all just layers, aren't they? You're not just a successful businesswoman, Vera. You're organized crime. You're a gangster. Vera poured 2 glasses of sparkling water, offering one to Clara. She didn't deny it. She rarely denied a truth presented clearly. I am an architect of my own systems, Clara. My world operates outside the lines the law has drawn, Vera said, meeting Clara's gaze without apology. But I told you what my rules are: no civilian harm. I target institutions that are broken, or rivals that want to destroy me. I keep the streets cleaner than the men who claim to rule them. That woman at the warehouse today, Talia. She threatened me, Clara accused, her hands shaking slightly. She warned you, Vera corrected, her voice firm but not harsh. Talia is fiercely loyal to me and protective of my spaces. You violated her security perimeter. But because you are Ellie's daughter, she gave you a pass. That's a loyalty you can rely on. Clara took a slow breath. She looked at Vera, seeing the cold precision of the businesswoman mixed with the genuine affection she showed her mother. I need you to promise me something, Vera. No matter how deep this goes with my mother, your other life never touches her. She cannot be at risk because you checked the wrong box on a form or because your people make a mistake. Vera set her glass down. This was the moment. She was being asked to swear on the one thing she cherished most, her relationship with Ellie. I swear it, Clara, Vera affirmed. Ellie Hastings is my civilian. She is my sanctuary. She will always be safe, and her integrity will never be compromised by me or the vault. My promise to you is my most ironclad rule. It is now the fourth pillar of my syndicate. Clara finally relaxed, a measure of respect replacing her fear. She wasn't just accepting Vera, she was accepting the complex geometry of her mother's love. She was now part of the defense system, a guardian of the space Vera and Ellie shared. The loyalty had shifted. Good, Clara murmured. Now, do you know how much a Laker costs? Because that exhibition budget is a little light. Vera smiled. She had passed the test. She had found a family, and with it, a vulnerability that made her feel more human than any victory the Vault had ever achieved. The foundation was set. Now, the rest of her life was about to be built. Chapter 4: The Proposal and the Quiet Ceremony. 2 years passed, years of unprecedented stability for Vera. The syndicate of the Vault thrived under her consistent, low-profile leadership, and her personal life bloomed under the steady, intellectual light of Ellie's love. Vera and Ellie merged their lives in the way only two mature, secure women can. They kept Ellie's elegant brownstone and purchased a sprawling, minimalist retreat in the hills of upstate New York, a place where Vera could truly disconnect and where Ellie could work on her monographs in absolute quiet. The relationship was defined by respect and companionship. They debated history and economics over breakfast, spent evenings reading in silence, and traveled to European cities for art research that also served as discreet overseas meetings for Vera. Ellie was never compromised. She simply enjoyed the 5-star treatment and the access to private collections Vera's wealth provided. The decision to marry wasn't a sudden, romantic gesture. It was an organizational conclusion, a formality that reflected the reality of their deeply interwoven lives. Vera planned the proposal with the same meticulous detail she planned a hostile takeover. She took Ellie to the small, unpretentious Italian restaurant where they had their first date. She didn't buy a traditional diamond. She commissioned a goldsmith to create a simple, architectural band of rose gold, etched with a single, continuous line, representing the endless flow of time and capital. Vera didn't kneel. She waited until the tiramisu arrived. Ellie, Vera began, her voice steady but softer than usual. I have spent my life building a structure that is mathematically perfect, unbreakable. Yet, you have introduced a variable I never accounted for: permanence. You are my home. I am safer and more honest with you than I am in any fortress I have built. She slid the rose gold band across the table. This is a commitment. It is a legal binding of assets, a public declaration of family, and a private acknowledgement that I want you in the final equation of my life. Will you marry me, Ellie? Ellie didn't cry or gasp. She picked up the ring, admired the clean, modern lines, and smiled the same knowing smile she'd given Vera in the art gallery years before. Vera Volkov, you have just proposed a perfect merger, Ellie replied. And yes, darling, I accept the terms of the acquisition. The ceremony. Their wedding was deliberately small and quiet, a private celebration that allowed Vera to maintain her required discretion while honoring Ellie's desire for traditional acknowledgement. They chose the upstate New York retreat, a place defined by nature and privacy. Only 4 guests were present. 1. Clara, the reluctant guardian who had become a trusted friend. 2. Lena the listener, Vera's second-in-command and closest confidant, dressed smartly but constantly scanning the perimeter out of habit. 3. Talia the switch, the silent security presence and witness, standing near the entry points, looking more comfortable in a suit than most men. 4. A judge, a discreet, retired local judge who owed Vera a very old, entirely legal favor. Ellie wore an ivory silk suit, and Vera wore a crisp white one. The vows were simple, focusing on mutual respect, intellectual partnership, and unwavering support. Clara, who served as a witness and took the only photographs, pulled Vera aside after the judge had pronounced them legally married. "You know, Mom is terrified of heights, but she's always felt safe on a cliff edge with you," Clara confessed, adjusting her own silver ring. "You've never asked her to compromise who she is." "Thank you, Vera." "Your mother," Vera replied, meeting Clara's gaze, "is the only thing in my life that has made the rest of it worthwhile. Your loyalty to her is why I trust you, Clara. It's why you're here." An unexpected revelation. The newly married life was comfortable, but it held one final, beautiful surprise. A month after the wedding, Clara came to their loft in Boston, clutching her camera bag, looking nervous. "Mom, Vera. I need to tell you both something," Clara started. Ellie looked concerned. "What is it, darling? Are you moving out of the city?" Clara shook her head, took a deep breath, and let it out with a relieved smile. "No. I'm moving in with someone. I'm engaged." Vera's analytical mind immediately went to work. Risk assessment. Who is this person? Stability. Financial dependency. "Her name is Simone," Clara said, preempting the questions. "She's an architect. She designs beautiful, brutalist structures. She's strong, smart, and she makes me feel like I can take over the world. We're getting married in the spring." Ellie immediately burst into tears of joy, rushing to hug her daughter. Vera, the unflappable leader of the syndicate, simply felt a powerful surge of satisfaction. Her stepdaughter, 23, was also a lesbian, marrying another woman, an architect no less, a profession based on structure and design. It was a beautiful symmetry. Vera smiled, a genuine, expansive expression that rarely broke through the vault exterior. She walked over to Clara, taking her hands. "An architect," Vera repeated. "Tell me, is she detail-oriented? Does she understand that a foundation must be invisible to be truly strong?" Clara laughed, tears in her eyes. "She's meticulous, Vera. She'd love your spreadsheets." "Then she is welcome to the family," Vera declared, pulling Clara into a tight, warm hug. "We will need to ensure her security perimeter is flawless. We will need to discuss the prenuptial agreement, Clara. And I will pay for the reception. No exceptions." For Vera Volkov, the crime boss who built her empire on steel and secrets, she was now the matriarch of an entirely lesbian family, unified not by power, but by love, structure, and an unshakable bond of loyalty. The family she had forged was finally complete. The story of the architect and the professor, and their new, beautifully complex life, had just begun.